Imagine the biting cold of a blizzard. The darkness of the night envelopes everything around you, and in front of you, you hear the muffled sound of the heavy breathing of a beast, a hungry lion, in its own den. Your heart races. The slippery snow-covered ground offers no stability, and every move needs to be calculated. But for BENAIAH, this was not a simple fight for survival. It was a test of faith and courage. Now, imagine that we are not talking about any legend. We are talking about a real man, with blood in his eyes and unshakable faith, who voluntarily descended to the bottom of that icy den. He was BENAIAH, one of the most loyal and fearless warriors in King David's army. Someone who was not intimidated by superhuman challenges. But this is just one of the many stories that surround him. BENAIAH was not just any warrior, not at all. He carried in his blood the legacy of the Levites, the tribe responsible for the most sacred functions of the Temple of Jerusalem. And beyond his lineage, his actions echoed throughout the history of Israel. The question is, how did a man of faith and religious duty become one of the most feared fighters of his time? Today, you will discover the epic feats of BENAIAH, the man who faced lions, defeated giants, and became the most faithful guardian of Israel's greatest kings. Get ready, because this is a journey of courage, loyalty, and unwavering faith. BENAIAH was not just a warrior driven by physical strength. He represented something much greater. Born into the tribe of Levi, the tribe chosen to serve in the temple, he carried with him a sacred legacy. From an early age, BENAIAH learned about the power of faith and the importance of devotion to God. But don't think that was all he was. He was also trained for battle, prepared to protect his people not only with prayers, but with the sword. Can you imagine what it was like to grow up in an environment like that? Surrounded by ritual and spirituality, yet living on the edge of dangerous territory where war was always lurking, BENAIAH knew that his mission was not only to care for the soul of Israel, but also to defend it tooth and nail. As Israel faced powerful enemies such as the Moabites and the Philistines, the role of warriors like BENAIAH became increasingly crucial. But there was something about him that set him apart. He did not fight just for glory or power. His loyalty was above all else. He was a man on a mission, and that mission was to protect the kingdom of Israel and its king, David. And so BENAIAH rose among David's mighty men, an elite group. His name began to be spoken alongside the great war heroes, and soon he would be called upon to do tasks that would require much more than physical strength. His destiny was beginning to intertwine with the future of the kingdom itself. The scene around BENAIAH was one of constant conflict. Israel, under the reign of David, was booming. Surrounded by enemies on all sides, Philistines, Moabites, Ammonites, and even the mighty Egyptians, the kingdom faced almost incessant battles. BENAIAH grew up in an environment where war was inevitable, and the need to protect one's territory was a matter of survival. In those days, military leadership was not just about brute force, but about strategy, trust, and, above all, faith. David's army was not a mere force of soldiers. It was a well-structured machine, with carefully organized divisions, and at the top of this pyramid were the mighty men of David. These men were the king's personal bodyguard, and BENAIAH was one of the most distinguished among them. BENAIAH's lineage, as a descendant of the tribe of Levi, added a layer of responsibility. His duty was not only to the king and the people, but also to God. The Levites had a unique heritage. They were responsible for religious and liturgical services, but in BENAIAH's case, his mission included the physical defense of the nation. It was an unusual combination, a man of faith called to lead amid the chaos of battle. But there was more to it. The region where BENAIAH grew up, in southern Israel near the border with Edom, was an area of constant tension. That environment shaped his spirit and his skills. From a young age, BENAIAH faced enemy incursions, honing his fighting skills in a territory where any slip-up could cost him his life. This combination of faith, lineage, and rigorous training made BENAIAH a warrior like few others. And as David's kingdom grew, he knew he would be called to decisive battles. Israel needed men who, like him, not only wielded the sword but also carried in their hearts the faith and sacred duty to protect their people. The battles began to intensify, and it was in this chaotic environment that BENAIAH began to stand out. One episode in particular would cement his name in history as one of the most fearless warriors in David's army. The fight was against the Moabites, a people known for their ferocity and brutal tactics. Two of their most feared warriors, giants in stature and skill, were on the battlefield. The tension in the air was palpable. Everyone knew that these men were no ordinary opponents. But it was BENAIAH who stood up to face them. Imagine the scene: the clang of swords and spears, war cries all around. Dust rises on the field, and in the midst of it all, BENAIAH advances, alone, against two of the enemy's most formidable warriors. Their numerical superiority was evident. Their strength, terrifying. But BENAIAH had something that went beyond physical strength. His confidence was based on something greater. The battle was intense, with each blow echoing across the plain. BENAIAH deflected the attacks and, with impressive precision, counterattacked. BENAIAH's agility and tactical intelligence turned a seemingly impossible fight into an absolute victory. He felled the two Moabite warriors, one by one. The silence that followed on the field was filled with admiration and amazement. Everyone witnessed that this victory was not just a matter of skill, but also of a greater purpose. This feat made BENAIAH rise even higher in David's army. He was no longer seen as just a brave soldier, but as a born leader. His unwavering loyalty to the king and his deep faith set him apart from the others. From that moment on, BENAIAH would not be remembered as just another warrior, but as a man capable of facing giants, both literal and symbolic. But the true test for BENAIAH would come on an unexpected day. Intense cold fell upon the land, a relentless blizzard covered the ground, making everything treacherous. Most of the men had taken shelter, but BENAIAH was called to face an unusual challenge. A lion had been sighted, roaming near the city. It wasn't just a matter of bravery. This beast posed a real threat to the people, and there was only one man capable of facing the danger head-on. With snow covering the ground and the biting winds making even the simplest steps difficult, BENAIAH found the lion. And the most incredible thing? The beast had fallen into a deep pit, making the confrontation even more risky. There he was, staring into the pit, the creature staring back at him with fierce eyes, its breath misting the cold air. Anyone would have hesitated. Facing a lion would be a daunting task under normal conditions, but doing so in such a confined space, with no escape route, was almost unthinkable. Yet, without hesitation, BENAIAH descended. With each step, the ice and snow made the terrain more treacherous, but he was determined. This lion had to be stopped. The creature's roar echoed through the cave, and the battle began. It was brutal, with every move requiring BENAIAH to combine strength and strategy. The lion's sharp claws and teeth posed a deadly threat, but BENAIAH stood his ground. Using his combat experience and, once again, his unwavering faith, he fought with a courage few could understand. And when silence finally fell, the beast was down. The lion that had once threatened the safety of all had been defeated. BENAIAH, covered in sweat and breathing heavily, had once again proven that his worth lay not only in his strength, but in his ability to face the impossible and win. This feat did not go unnoticed. BENAIAH's fame grew. He was no longer just a loyal warrior, he was becoming a living legend among the men of Israel, a symbol of courage and determination that inspired everyone around him. After his victory over the lion, BENAIAH was no longer seen as just an exceptional warrior, but as someone whose courage and loyalty seemed to be driven by something beyond human strength. But fate had another great challenge in store for him. This time, his opponent would not be a beast, but a man. A giant. The confrontation took place against a colossal Egyptian warrior, whose spear was so large and heavy that it looked more like the shaft of a loom. The difference in size and weaponry between the two was striking. The Egyptian, confident in his immense strength, advanced with his spear raised, ready to crush any adversary. But BENAIAH did not retreat. He was armed only with a staff, a simple and modest weapon compared to the imposing spear of the Egyptian. To those watching, it seemed like a lost battle. But if there was one thing BENAIAH had learned from his previous battles, it was that strategy and intelligence were as important as brute force. With swift and precise movements, BENAIAH dodged the heavy spear blows. He analyzed the giant's every move, looking for an opening, a mistake. And finally, the right moment came. With a swift maneuver, he disarmed the Egyptian, took the opponent's own spear and, with a decisive blow, turned the battle in his favor. The victory was impressive. The physical strength of the Egyptian giant, who had once seemed invincible, had been overcome by BENAIAH's cunning and courage. Once again, he proved that true strength does not come from muscles alone, but from wisdom and faith. His fame spread even further. But this victory represented more than just another military triumph. It was a turning point. BENAIAH, at this point, was no longer just another soldier among many others. His unwavering loyalty, his unmatched bravery, and his extraordinary deeds placed him among the most trusted and respected warriors in David's army. And from that point on, he would begin to assume an even more crucial role in the protection and future of the Kingdom of Israel. With each victory, BENAIAH became more than a warrior on the battlefield, he was becoming the personal shield of the kingdom. His unquestioning loyalty and extraordinary skills caught the attention of David himself, who soon promoted him to commander of the royal guard. Being responsible for the king's protection was no easy task. It required not only strength, but a sense of duty and trust that few men possessed. And it was in this role that BENAIAH became involved in one of the most decisive moments in the history of Israel, the transition of power between King David and his son, Solomon. The kingdom was at a delicate moment. David, already in his final years of life, was weakened, and the question of succession to the throne became urgent. Adonijah, one of David's eldest sons, saw an opportunity and decided to act on his own, proclaiming himself king without his father's consent. Adonijah organized an elaborate ceremony, inviting powerful men from the kingdom to support his claim. Among them were Joab, David's former army commander, and Abiathar, the priest. But Adonijah made a fatal mistake. He ignored David's closest allies, including the prophet Nathan, the priest Zadok, and, of course, BENAIAH. BENAIAH knew something was wrong. His loyalty to David and his faith in God's plan for Israel had placed him on the side of Solomon, God's chosen successor to the throne. When the prophet Nathan and Queen Bathsheba came to David to warn him of Adonijah's coup, the king acted quickly. He ordered that Solomon be anointed king immediately, and guess who was called to ensure that this order was carried out? BENAIAH. In one of the most pivotal moments in Israel's history, BENAIAH, along with Zadok and Nathan, organized Solomon's anointing ceremony. The city erupted in joy. Trumpets sounded, and the people of Jerusalem recognized Solomon as their new ruler. Meanwhile, on the other side, Adonijah and his followers, hearing the sounds of celebration, realized that their attempt to seize the throne had failed. BENAIAH had once again done his duty. He was not only a warrior who won physical battles, but also someone who knew how to protect the stability of the kingdom. And in that moment, his loyalty and bravery ensured that the rightful heir took the throne, preserving the promised line. Solomon's anointing as king was a turning point, but the threat of Adonijah still loomed large. Although he had failed in his attempt to usurp the throne, tensions in the kingdom remained high. Adonijah, sensing the imminent danger, ran to the altar of the Lord and grabbed hold of the horns of the altar, seeking sacred protection, a gesture of desperation but also of a plea for mercy. He knew that if Solomon decided to eliminate him, the sanctity of the altar might be his last hope. When the news reached Solomon, he faced a dilemma. He could easily have Adonijah executed then and there, ensuring that there would be no further coup attempts. But Solomon, even as a young man, showed wisdom. He decided to give Adonijah a chance, as long as he did not plot against the throne again. However, time would show that Adonijah's ambitions still burned in his heart. Shortly thereafter, he made a request to Solomon's mother, Bathsheba, that seemed harmless at first glance. He wanted to marry Abishag, the young woman who had cared for David in his final days. But Solomon quickly understood the underlying motive behind this request. In the culture of the time, marrying a king's concubine was a veiled claim to the throne. Adonijah was, once again, trying to position himself in a position of power. This time, Solomon did not hesitate. He knew that the only way to ensure the stability of the kingdom and prevent future conspiracies was to act decisively. And when the time came to carry out Adonijah's death sentence, the king entrusted this task to his most loyal man, BENAIAH. Without hesitation, BENAIAH carried out the order, definitively ending the threat posed by Adonijah. It was a crucial moment, not only for Solomon, but also for BENAIAH, whose loyalty and duty to the kingdom proved unwavering even in the face of the most difficult orders. But that was not all. Other enemies of the new king also needed to be removed to ensure the peace and stability of the kingdom. Joab, the former army commander who had supported Adonijah, knew that his end was near. He, like Adonijah before him, ran to the altar of the Lord, hoping that the sacred place would protect him. However, Solomon was clear, not even the altar could protect someone who had conspired against the kingdom. And once again, BENAIAH was called to carry out the order. BENAIAH entered the tabernacle, removed Joab from the altar, and carried out the sentence. It was the end of an era for Israel. By eliminating the traitors and consolidating Solomon's power, BENAIAH helped ensure that the new king's reign would be built on a solid foundation and free from threats. With the elimination of Adonijah and Joab, Solomon's kingdom was finally stabilized. The conspiracy had been dismantled, and the internal threats had been neutralized. As a reward for his loyalty, courage, and efficiency, BENAIAH was promoted to the highest military position, Supreme Commander of the Army of Israel. He succeeded Joab, assuming leadership of one of the most powerful military forces in the region. Under BENAIAH's command, the Army of Israel underwent a reorganization. His leadership was not based solely on discipline and strength, he also inspired his men with a deep sense of loyalty and duty. BENAIAH was not just an obedient soldier. He understood that Israel's security depended not only on military strength, but on something greater, loyalty to the king and, above all, obedience to God. With BENAIAH at its head, Solomon's kingdom flourished. His presence brought stability not only in battle, but also at court. He was the man Solomon trusted unconditionally, both for sensitive missions and to protect the kingdom from new threats. Under his leadership, Israel continued to expand and consolidate itself as a regional power. But BENAIAH's contribution went beyond the battles he won. He was a man of faith, someone who understood the divine purpose behind his actions. For him, protecting the kingdom of Israel was more than a military task. It was about fulfilling God's plan, ensuring that the chosen nation continued to prosper and follow the path established by the kings the Lord had anointed. Over the years, his reputation only grew. BENAIAH became an iconic figure in Solomon's court, a symbol of loyalty and bravery. And as time passed, his legacy became an example for generations to come, the story of a man who not only defeated powerful enemies, but who, with his unwavering faith, helped build the most glorious kingdom in Israel. BENAIAH showed that true strength lies not in the sword alone, but in commitment to what is right and trust in something greater than oneself. He was both a warrior and a faithful servant, and his life remains a testament to the fact that courage, when guided by faith, can transform the destiny of a nation. BENAIAH's legacy did not end with his life or his military achievements. His exploits became stories that echoed throughout Israel, not only as memories of victories in battle, but as lessons in loyalty, faith, and leadership. He was a living example that the greatness of a leader is measured not only by his ability to defeat enemies, but by his ability to protect what is right, to serve with honor, and to put the good of the kingdom above any personal ambition. When we look back at Solomon's reign, we see a period of peace, wisdom, and prosperity that was made possible in large part by men like BENAIAH. He ensured that Solomon's throne was secure, eliminated internal betrayals, and proved himself a faithful shield for the kingdom. With him at the head of the army, Israel was not only protected but also prepared to deal with any challenge that might come. More than just a commander, BENAIAH was a cornerstone in the foundation of Solomon's reign. He served as an example to other leaders and warriors, showing that true strength comes from a life dedicated to duty and faith. He did not seek glory for himself, but understood that his role was to be the hand that held the sword in defense of justice, peace, and the will of God. And even after his death, BENAIAH's name continued to be remembered as a symbol of unwavering loyalty. His legacy has spanned generations, inspiring not only soldiers and leaders, but all those who understand the value of serving something greater than themselves. He was, and will always be, an example that with courage and faith, it is possible to shape the destiny of a nation. His story reminds us that in times of trouble, it is not only sharp swords or brilliant strategies that ensure victory. It is committed hearts, faithful souls, and the courage of those who give themselves body and spirit to a just cause. That was BENAIAH, more than a warrior, a guardian of the kingdom and of faith.